Hi there, I'm Alan Mathews, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about a way to make your playing much more expressive and a way to handle a very common occurrence in music so that everything that you play and all the pieces that you play will just be that much more beautiful and sound more structured and will have more movement going forward on it. So to begin with, what this video is all about is doubled notes, or 2/8 notes, pairs of notes. And we encounter pairs of notes leading to a longer note all over the place. And so let me just give you a couple of examples, and then I'll actually give you some musical examples as well. Before we actually talk about eighth notes, I think it's really good that we just remind ourselves what the ultimate goal of our music is. And that is, we have all these notes that make up a piece. And what we want to do is we want to make as much forward motion as possible. We want to keep things moving. We want to keep it interesting. Just like a good story, just like a good book or a good movie, we always want to keep the action moving forward. And some things encourage that and keep the action moving forward, and other things actually go in and then they just stop it right there, and then you have to start back over again. And so what we want to do then is encourage as much forward motion as possible and reduce the amount of stopping. So that's our goal in all of this. One way to go about this, and there are many little tricks that you can use, they're not really tricks, but they're ways to handle different things. But one of the things that we can do is that we can notice this tendency that we have to very oftentimes have something like this right here. This happens to be in a bar of 3/4 here. We have a long note followed by two short notes across a bar or not across the bar, leading to another long note. This could just as easily be a quarter, 2/8, and another quarter. Same exact issue at hand. We have two short notes leading to a long note. So this is what we're dealing with here. The way that we actually handle this is to split these eighths right here. So we want to just think of them as two different things because they have different roles. Now the role of the first eighth note is to finish the note that came before it, which is this one. So we have da, da, and I just think of it as the word off. So just think da, off. The first short note finishes the stuff that came before. The next eighth note actually propels us and gives us the pickup to the next note. And so then I think and then here. And the and is the big part. So da, off, and here. So the roles of the two eighth notes are not the same. And so we don't want to just go da, ba, ba, ba. We never play them equally in the same. It's just boring to do that, and it actually kind of starts things over. It's just not very pretty. It's a lost opportunity, basically, is what it is. So if you ever want to take advantage of this opportunity, then split it right there and think long, short, and here. So the second eighth note has a different role than the first. Let's actually take a look at some musical examples of this now. So to start off with, we're just going to look. This is the Branly and Glace, very popular little classical guitar piece. And what we're going to look at here is this right here. So here we have, and these happen all over the place in this. That's why I chose this piece. We have 2/8 leading to a quarter, right? So what we're going to do is we are just going to split it right down the middle. Boom. And then this goes bum, bum, that goes to there. Then this one leads to there. Now we'll talk about actually how to do this in a few minutes. But just first off, I just want you to recognize all the places that this can happen. And notice that these are not places to just be plowed through, but actually handle these notes in a way that it's really musical and really beautiful. Again, it's here. It's all over the place in this bar, in this thing. Here they are. Here they are. You can just look through, and every time you have eighth notes, you can just think of them as being two separate things, as if there were a period in a sentence before it. We can butt two sentences up together, but we still separate them mentally, and with our intention. We can separate two sentences, and that way it still makes sense. When we don't do that in speech, it becomes really hypnotic because we don't know where one sentence ends and the next begins. And so it just kind of, we end up going into a trance on it. And that's not really what we want in music. We want to keep people engaged and really keep them interested in what's going on. Oh, I just want to point out as well, this could happen at any point in the bar. This could happen literally at any point in the bar. It could happen at the beginning of the bar, as it does right here. And it could also happen at the end of the bar, as in this right here. Here we have this whole area right here in this bar. We have a long note leading to two short notes, and we would just split them right down the middle. And so it's the exact same issue as it is in the beginning of a bar, anywhere like that. Whenever you have 2/8 leading forward, then you can do it in that way. The next way I'd like to talk about is at the beginning as pickup notes. So the very beginning of a song, we very oftentimes have this right here, which is 2/8 as pickup notes leading into the bar. And the way that you can think about this is, boom, split those across. That was kind of a sloppy one. Let's do it again. Split those, and the first one, just think one for free. One for free. One for nothing would be another way to say that. One for nothing. Boom. So this note right here, just play it. Just don't do much with it. Just play it. Boom. It just stands alone. Now the second note leads to across the bar. So we have boom, and here. And you can just say these words, and here. So dum, and here. This is the hymn L'Amour by it's arranged by Roland Dyens. I love this piece. I'm just playing it currently, and so it's on my mind. Dum da da, instead of ba da ba, very marchish and very heavy footed. This just can lead us right in. One for nothing, boom, dum, and here, and it just creates motion going forward across the bar, and it just sets the ball rolling so that you can then build the piece on that. The next example I'd like to look at as far as pairs of notes goes is this right here at the end of the bar. We've got these two notes right here leading forward as well. So these are quarter notes. And so we can also do this with quarter notes. So short notes lead to long notes. This is a rule you should just basically know. Short notes lead to long notes. And so we've got our first three notes. That just kind of tidies things up. Bump, bump, bump. And then we have these two notes, bump, bump, at the end right here. And so we've also got it down here, just glancing. I see this pair of notes here. Now, we do the exact same thing when we do this. All this goes to here, and then this last one gives us our upbeat to the next thing. This might be not the best example because there's this other quarter note in front of it, so it might be a little bit confusing, but just imagine that it's not, and you just have two quarters leading to something else going forward, and that's the exact same issue. We split them. Whenever you have two of the same rhythm leading forward to something else, then the first one ends the stuff before, the next one is the upbeat to the upcoming stuff. So that is the two quarter notes. Now, there's another way that this happens as well, and this is doubled notes. And this is this whole string right here of notes, and we have two of each type of note, at least, right? Dun, 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 da, 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 da. So we have these doubled notes. Same notes, same notes. When we do this, it can be really heavy-footed. I keep saying this, but very square, not very beautiful to accent the first one. Dun, 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 dun. Like this. Instead, we want to split each one of these and think here, and here, and here, and here, and here. So you're constantly offering something new. And here, and here, and here, and here. Dum da 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 dum da. And so that you end up, it's not necessarily an accent. We'll talk in a few minutes about actually how to make this happen. But just to the intention in your head and knowing the direction of where you want everything to go, what goes with what leads to what, just as in speech, you have to know these things. You have to know what it is that you're talking about and what it is that you're describing and bringing up in a minute, setting up with your word choice, it's the exact same thing here. So we want to split these. Don't accent this first one, or don't think of it as the main thing. Think about the second of the eighth note leading forward. Let me just change color here. Leading forward. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. What this also does whenever you have these doubled notes is that it actually brings out, it illustrates and really demonstrates the changing of the note. Things staying the same is not interesting. Things changing is interesting. And so then that actually says, oh, something's different is happening. If we accent the first one, it's saying dum, dum. The second one is quiet, therefore it's just an echo of the first one and is pretty much a throwaway note. It's not really important. If we reverse that and make the second one the important note, or the one that we're actually thinking more of and really demonstrating with the music, kind of giving it even more, either spacing it, or we'll talk about this in a minute, then that actually brings it forward, like, oh, listen to this, oh, listen to this, and then there's this, and then there's this, oh, let me show you this. It keeps the attention going by saying something important is coming up, and then something else important is coming up. And so then whenever you have these straight strings of eighth notes, you can think about them in this way. With that, if you have a big long line of eighth notes, you don't want to do every single one where you're just galloping along from two notes. You want longer lines as well. But within longer lines, you can still think about this type of thing, especially with doubled notes, which is what we're talking about here. The last one we're going to talk about here before we actually talk about what to do with these notes to actually bring them forward like this is this right here. And that is the similarity with what we were just talking about, which is steady eighth notes. That is steady half notes in the bass. If you look down here, we have straight eighth or straight half notes. This is the Branley again. And it's the exact same way. This one, we basically say one for free, boom. The second one leads us to the next beat. It leads us over the bar. And what we're talking about here is the upbeat. And then that goes forward, and it just happens. That goes forward. That goes forward. So we're always leading over the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And here. So it's the exact same thing as the smaller scale, but now we're dealing with the big bass notes. So let's talk about how to actually make this happen. The main thing is that you have the intention and that you know what it is that you're wanting to do with the notes, or where you want the notes to go. That you're saying, I want the action to move forward and I want the attention of the listener to be on what's coming next. You're building some anticipation by the way that you're actually playing these notes. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. So we have our 2/8 leading to the big one. Now the first way, and this is a really great way, this is kind of if you can make it work, this doesn't work in everything, but the nicest way, you decrescendo whatever it is to that note so that that note is quiet. You can think of this note as saying, just be quiet with it. Now the next one, this one, and then we separate those obviously. Now this one, if we actually separate the sound, so that this is the first way that we can talk about, we actually cut it here. So you end up playing this instead of that. It's actually instead, it ends up being more like a 30-second note with a 30-second note rest. That's kind of an ugly rest, but you get the point. And then the note. So you're actually having space. Dump, da dum. So you actually stop the sound. So instead of da da dum, or even reducing it like we were talking about, dum ba dum dum ba dum. So instead of connecting the sound, you actually break the sound. You make a little spot of silence. Mute the note out. Don't make it staccato necessarily, but just play it and then have a rest. Da ba dum. So we insert silence. That's one way to set these apart, and it really makes it work to then kick that one forward in that. That's the first way, is insert silence into it, a rest. As if you can read my writing anyway. Okay, the next way that we could do this, when we can't necessarily do that. Sometimes you actually want it to connect and you don't want to build that silence. Incidentally, let me just go back here for just a second. Incidentally, when we have these the bass notes like this, when we have these bass notes, the half note bass notes going on, this is so effective to be able, if you can actually just if you can do it, not all music can you stop the, you want them to connect a lot of times, but if you can actually stop this sound right here and then place this one, give it a slight accent, it really kicks the action forward. And so it's a good way to do it if you can, but you can't always, because sometimes it's just, you can't stop the sound. The next way that we can do this is through spacing. So once again here we have our rhythm. Eighth note leading forward. And what we do then is we could actually just, it's called placing a note. And that is, instead of just charging right through and saying 1 and 2, da da da, we go bum ba dum. You actually place it a little bit. It's not late, but it's as late as the law allows. It's almost right here instead. Some people call this double dotting, but it's not exactly what I'm talking about here. That would be kind of like a making this into a it's a different thing. But a lot of Baroque players talk about double dotting, and it's kind of the same, but it's not exactly the same. What this is just placement. And this is just where you actually place the note in time. So just point right on the notes. We, instead of just 1 and 2, you go 1 and 2. Don't you place it exactly where you want it, as late as you possibly can. So then that's the thing. Late. This one being late is another way. You can't make it so late that it's out of time, but if you just like kick it a little bit this way, well then it puts it closer to this note. And so then we obviously know, oh, it's attached to the stuff coming forward, and that's what we're doing. That's the whole point of what we're doing right here. So the second way here is to make it a little bit late. It's not late, it's still on time. It's just as late as the law allows, basically. As late as possible without being wrong. You can't change the rhythm, but you can actually play with the rhythm expressively, and that's what we're talking about here. So to recap, what do we have here? We have, number 1, we can just accent the second note, right? Or let's just say that we use dynamics. And that is, we decrescendo, first note quiet, second note accented. Accent that, really decrescendo, make this one really quiet, or just think about it as being, as just off. Just closes the stuff that comes before it. The second one is big and is accented. That's the first way to do it. The second way to do it is to create space. So you actually separate the note. Separate the second note, the 2 notes. So then we have our 2 notes, and we actually break them apart and separate them. The third way is to make the second note late. And this is really just placed. It's not actually late. Don't tell people, well, Alan said to play it late. It's not really late, it's just placed really well. And you have to do this with your body. It's a really interesting thing, but you have to do this with your body. You can't just mentally say, no, I'm going to play it late here. You can't do it that way. You have to actually, it's almost like you have to break through a membrane or something like this, where you're playing and it's like, boom, you have to like, there's just a slight bit of resistance before the note, and it just makes it to where it's just a little bit harder to get out. What that does is it propels us forward into the next note. And that is the way it is done. All right. This has been a lot of information on pairs of notes. I hope that is helpful for you. I highly recommend you just go into a piece of music that you're working on and make a copy of it, and then just mark every single time you have a pair of notes. 2/8 notes leading to a long note, 2/4 notes leading to a long note, and just practice this with it. Play the first note quiet, use one of these techniques to move it forward to the next note, and that is it. Hope that helps. Please subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.